Hi, today I want to show you two of our Daniel Smith Extra Fine Watercolor Sticks, our Indantone Blue and New Gamboge. And I'm going to show you some tips that you can use with working with these. I have my Pansy watercolor here and my simple line design to show you some of the tips. To get started, I'm going to do my pale washes and the blue, and the Indantone Blue. And to get started with that, I'm going to just dip one end of my Indantone Blue into some water. And I'm going to put some of the pigment onto my palette, dipping my brush in the water till I get a nice little wash. And I'm going to go ahead and start filling in some of the pale blue areas of my pansy. And I'm going to go ahead and work on this till I get to my next tip. Now that most of my washes are dry, I'm going to go back in with my Indantone Blue watercolor stick. And I'm actually going to draw in some of the little freckles on the pansy, just taking the edge of it and making a few little marks to kind of capture those little freckles on the pansy. And I'm just taking the edge of my watercolor stick and drawing it through, making my little marks. As you can see, it's catching on the watercolor paper, so it's actually making dots rather than, oops, that was a little wet right there, making dots rather than a solid line, which is exactly what I want, because I want little freckles. And I'm going to keep doing this. So now I've got most of the little freckles going on, and on this particular pansy you can see it's got a little bit darker lip here, and I'm just going to put my Indantone Blue a little bit darker and just draw in here, as you can see. Here we go. And I'll come back with my brush in a moment. Now I've worked on more of my freckles, and now I'm going to start pulling in some of this Indantone that's been dissolved out over the earlier wash. Add some depth going on here so that you get the effect of this separate petal right in here. Just add a little bit heavier color. Draw it up here. And now next, what I'm going to do, working with my watercolor stick directly, I'm going to apply the wet brush and start to fill in some of these darker areas with the pure pigment, and I'll continue working on that till I'm finished with that. Now I'm going to go ahead and work with my leaves. I'm going to paint directly from my watercolor sticks using my wet brush, and I'm going to dip up some of my Indantone Blue and my New Gamboge, and I can go ahead and just apply it directly to the leaf. I'm going to trace it out, get a little bit more water on my watercolor brush, and I'm going to work on these leaves right now. Now I'm going to add the yellow center to my pansies. I'm going to dip my New Gamboge watercolor stick directly into the water, and I'm going to make some marks here in my center that will just dabbing away here for the pansy center. Now I'm going to mix up this really pale color in the background by dipping my New Gamboge into the water and just a tiny bit of Indantone Blue so I can make this pale background. Dilute it out pretty well. And in a moment, start laying it out here. I hope you've enjoyed the demonstration today with some techniques and tips that you can use when you're using your Daniel Smith Extra Fine Watercolor Sticks. This is the Indantone Blue and New Gamboge by Daniel Smith.